Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy to be here. This is an amazing thing for me. The staff here at TEDxFlanders has been incredible. They've made such comfort and reception possible for us, fabulous food, wonderful accommodations, and just a beautiful setting. And we really feel the warmth of Antwerp and the people here, so thank you for that. I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for over 3 decades. It's a very strange thing because I've taught all different grade levels in many different school districts all around. And it's interesting how I got that job. I never intended to be a teacher. I was traveling back and forth to India seeking enlightenment, sitting in meditation in caves and so forth. And when I got back the last time, I said to my father, I had the big afro and a big beard and white robes and the beads. I said, "Father, I think I have just about discovered enlightenment." He said, "Well, that's very good, John. But there's one more thing you need." "What's that?" He said, "A job." So yeah, I guess it has to go with enlightenment, all right. So I had somehow managed to get a degree in education, and I went for my first job interview. And it was a very hot day in 1977. I had a 3-piece suit and my platform shoes. You remember it was the 70s, So the thing that I went through was an interview. The supervisor, Mrs. Aero, was questioning me. And it appeared that I was actually going to get the job. I actually was going to become a teacher. And just as she said, "All right, you have the job. You're going to be teaching gifted children. They're smarter than you, so be prepared for that." And I said, "Oh, well, good, but one thing, what do I do?" And her answer was in the form of a question, and that question changed my entire life. It changed everything, and it set the stage, it set the template for everything that was to follow in my teaching. She said to me, "What do you want to do?" She didn't give me a directive, a mandate, a manual to follow. She cleared an empty space and said, "What do you think you should do?" And that was such a shock to have an empty space. And I thought, well, this emptiness, I can't work in emptiness. There's nothing there. But out of that emptiness comes this thing you're going to see today called the World Peace Game. And you see this because a young filmmaker, Christopher Farina, a dear friend of mine now. He's a young visionary filmmaker. A mutual friend introduced us. He came into my classroom. And he said, "I'm looking to make a film, and I heard about this game. It's a gigantic structure. Can I think about a film with you?" So he stayed for several weeks, and he said he saw a story. He saw my story, and he saw the story of the game. So it started as a project about a single individual. But what this gifted filmmaker did was he made a film much more than about one person. He made a film about teaching and teachers, and it's a testament to teaching. And it's a brilliant thing because whenever I see the film, I see myself disappear, literally. I watch, and I see my gestures, my movements, my teaching is really a combination, a compilation of the movements and gestures of my teachers. I see them literally coming through me. This gesture is my mother's gesture. She taught me in the 4th grade in the South, in the U.S. in the 60s when the races were segregated. I went to an all-black school. My mother was a teacher. But this gesture she had, I use that gesture. It's almost as if I'm a continuation, I say, of my mother's gesture, which is an amazing feeling to have in a classroom. I've even had a chance to teach my daughter. So let me tell you about this game we have. It's called the World Peace Game. And it's a gigantic plexiglass tower. It's 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet, and it towers over some of the students. It's plexiglass so you can see all the levels. There's a 4 foot by 4 foot sheet of plexiglass here, the undersea level. And there's submarines and undersea mining and all kinds of lost cities and that kind of thing going on down there. The next level about this high is the ground and sea level. And there's thousands of pieces of factories and cities and armies and all sorts of things you find in the countries. The next level is the aircraft level, about so high. They're giant puffs of cotton for clouds. And the weather goddess, or the girl who plays the random goddess in the game, we have random stock market, random weather, she'll push the clouds around to make weather changing here and there. There are air forces in territorial airspaces and so on. And the top level is the outer space level. It's taller than most of the students. They stand on a stool to move things around. And on that level, you have asteroid mining, you have black holes, you have research and killer satellites and space stations. And I've divided the children into 4 teams, 4 countries, one on each side of the board. And each of these teams, there's a prime minister, and I asked a student to be a prime minister. I said, will you think about doing that? And they can refuse if they like, but then if they accept, they pick their own cabinet, Secretary of State, Minister of Defense, Chief Comptroller to operate the budget. There's the United Nations, arms dealers, there's even a World Bank officer. My 3rd grader says, how many zeros in a trillion? I'm the World Bank president. What do I do? So we have our teams assembled, and I give them 50 interlocking problems involving all of the world's crises, including global warming. And they have about 8 weeks to solve these things any way they can. But they have a crisis scenario, these 50 problems, and it's almost impossible to solve. I deliberately complexified it so much that it's almost impossible. But they're so entranced and intrigued, and they want to so badly be a part of this, that they have a love for this desire for this success, but yet they're so afraid that they may fail. But we have a relationship, and there's a trust there. And with that trust, they feel they can attempt it safely. They're allowed to fail as many times as they wish, because that's a part of life. If you were successful every time, it would be pretty easy. But we're allowed to try and adjust ourselves in the process. And so they have 2 objectives: to raise every country's asset value from the start of the game, and to solve all the problems any way they can. And that's what it looks like. So let me just show you a clip. This is a short 3-minute video clip from the trailer of the film World Peace and Other 4th Grade Achievements by Chris Farina. Chris is so good, he can make a rock look glamorous. So I look fairly good in the film. So I hope so. So this is World Peace and Other 4th Grade Achievements, just a short trailer. Relationships are important in education. That really may be even the key to teaching well, is the relationship you have with a student. If you're able to touch their mind, fine, but if you can touch their heart, then the mind contact lasts longer and goes deeper, I think. Welcome to the World Peace Game. I'm very, very sorry, but you're going to have fun today. This is the World Peace Game, and it's about 28 years old. It's a political science simulation. And the game basically pits 4 or 5 countries against each other in every way, politically, socially, militarily, and economically. And they have to use their imagination, use their thinking skills to think their way out of these problems that they're pitched into head first.
It's a game that makes you think really hard. It makes you really think about what's really going on in the world.
What I think is you can't be all about war, and you can't be, again, this may sound bad, but you can't be all about peace.
Yeah, not like all like flowers and grassy fields and
solar
panels.
They threaten you, Miss Williams, and your cabinet to destroy the refinery complex if they are challenged. I want it to be so thrilling that they don't want to do without it, but so challenging that they almost can't do it. That kind of tension is where learning occurs. They have that love and fear, and that learning just torques on that kind of mismatch.
There has to be a way we can use this. We have to figure that out. We can use this volcano, use this eruption to make something good happen.
If you look on the World Peace Game map, he has like that much oil.
So does Caden. And Caden's our complete ally.
Yes.
I don't want to be a rebel. She doesn't want to. We can make a treaty.
I hope that they take away every creative thinking tool, every critical thinking tool they can, and they have a confidence that they can solve any problem, they can deal with anything. As I said to them today, if just one of you is is in position to leverage something good for the world, you may save us all. And that's what I'm naively hoping might happen. I'm naively hoping this might happen. Incidentally, curiously enough, we've been invited, Chris Farina and I, to the Pentagon in about 1 month to speak. We're not quite sure what that's all about, but we hope it's a good thing. Yeah. So I would just say that one more element exists, and that is the saboteur. My highest functioning child, usually the troublemaker in our school, my highest functioning child, I asked to assume a role. On the surface, they're trying to save the world, achieve those two goals we talked about, raising asset value and solving the problems. But on the other hand, they're secretly trying to destroy everything, undermine all the operations through misinformation, misdirection, ambiguities, irrelevancy. They don't lie outright, but this very clever child has to have a dual-mindedness, sort of being a yin and a yang within themselves, in order to keep everyone, and everyone knows that that person is in the room. So every discussion, every negotiation is under deep scrutiny, and their minds have to go deeper and deeper in their thinking to discern every nuance and to see what is really there if they can. So with that, we realize that there's no map to winning this game. They solve it and win it differently every time. I cannot predict. I have no hand on the policy once they start. I cannot interfere or influence. I can ask probing questions, keep an eye on the clock, maybe part some parties when they get a little overheated. But basically, it's their game. They are allowed to, empowered to, run the world the way they see fit. And what emerges so often is a universal desire after 35 years of doing this to reduce suffering and increase compassion. They just seem to have a will to good. I don't know why, but they do this year after year, time after time. And they're in the worst possible situation. They're almost encouraged to be impulsive and to go to war. Some games are more about economics, some are more about warfare, some are more about social issues. But they can do what they choose to do and come through it in their own way, in that empty space of not having any particular mandate to follow. So I'll just share with you a story or two about a few things that have happened. Some of you may have heard one story that I told in a talk about the girl tank commander. Yes, there are such things in the world, and they're formidable too, let me tell you. But I have also a second story I'll share that I've never told before. But this young girl was a Minister of Defense on the poorest team, the poorest country. They start with different asset amounts. And she was a military commander, and her prime minister said, just be still, don't do anything. And of course, she's not going to stand for that. Next door is a very wealthy, oil-rich country. And this oil-rich country is very powerful. And suddenly, without warning, this little girl takes her tank corps, marches into that country, surrounds the oil field of that oil-rich neighbor, and locks it down so they can't do any military maneuvers whatsoever. We're shocked. This is the world peace game. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is wrong. And everybody's upset with her. And what does she do? She folds her arms and says, I know what I'm doing. Her friends were upset with her. But we had to let it go because that was her choice, her decision. And come to find out, a few rounds of play later, we call them game days when everyone takes a turn and gives their declarations, we come to find out that she, by having this small war, had averted a hidden plan for a much larger war. This oil-rich neighbor was planning a world domination campaign. She saw the trend lines, the vectors, things coming together long before anybody else did intuitively, and she knew she had to take action. She made a deeply philosophical decision on her own to do what she thought was right against the will of everyone else in the game. My heart was breaking when it happened. I thought, this is the wrong thing. I'm failing as a teacher. I've had many days like that with this game, I tell you. And so we had to have a discussion. Was this correct or not correct? I remember the term conditional good coming up from 9-year-old students. They read Sun Tzu's The Art of War as a thing that we open every session with a reading from that book, and they get their own little copies eventually. You see them carrying around school, like Sun Tzu says, do this at lunchtime. Sun Tzu says, watch out on the playground. But they carry that information, that understanding into the game, into their own practice. And so we have situations like that. And finally, we had a situation, I will say, I call it Pablo. Pablo is a little fellow, and he's very slow. Pablo talks slowly, he walks slowly, he's very round, and his hair sticks up. And he has thick glasses. And when he talks, his classmates just wait for him to finish because they know it's so long. So I asked Pablo to be the prime minister. I had an intuition that this great speaking role was suitable for Pablo. And all the other students are going, oh, Mr. Hunter, why did you do that? No, please. His teammates are crying. But Pablo starts with the beginning of the game. He makes one move. There's thousands of moves you can make. I'm Pablo, and I'm going to make this declaration. He moves one thing. All the other prime ministers, 5, 6, 10 things. 6 weeks go by, and I see Pablo mature. And finally, Pablo stands up at the end of the game, and he says, I am Pablo, and I see it coming. He's shaking a little bit. His eyes are very big. I know what's going to happen because I've seen it happen before. Pablo says, I'm Pablo, and these are my declarations. He makes 22 moves in about 2.5 minutes, just like this, on all levels of the board. Pablo runs the entire game. Pablo gets it. He sees the trend lines and vectors. He understands it suddenly in a moment. His eyes are like this. He steps back, and I said, Pablo, you see. He turns to me and says, Mr. Hunter, I see everything. Pablo, you understand. Mr. Hunter, I understand everything. And later, going to the bus, I saw him going. I said, Pablo, you know what? I ran to catch him before he got on the bus. He's stepping up on the bus. I said, Pablo, you know what? You are a leader now. And the most touching moment, he turned to me and he said, I know. I know I am now. And so with that, I'll just conclude saying this game is not really realistic. It's really a pretext for children developing the thinking, critical and creative thinking tools to be able to problem solve, to help us out and save this planet, because we have left such a mess for them. And so really this pretext of a game is something that they show me can be used to help reduce suffering and increase compassion in the world. And that is my experience with the World Peace Game. Thank you so much. Thank you.
John Hunter. Do you want me to call him back? Shall I call him back? Hold on. Mr. Hunter, please come back.